All right, so this is really cool. My older brother actually went to Michael's or a craft store, and he got this stuff to make this thorny crown to kind of use as sort of a costume prop when we're playing in a D&D campaign because it has to do with his character's subclass. And I told him that I was looking to make some dark and spooky trees, and so he gave me what was left over, which is fantastic. I think this material is originally used for making like wreaths for your door, but for me, it was going to work perfectly for creating small, dark, and spooky trees. So as you guys have seen me do before on many videos, I'm cutting my base out of XPS foam. I did recently go out and buy some 1/2 inch. This is 1 inch, which was a little bit too thick for what I wanted. So some of these pieces I was able to split right down the middle like this. Some of them were so wide that I had to just shave and carve it down. It does feel like a shame having to use up the half or the full inch width this way, especially now that after I finished this project, I went out and bought some 1/2 inch. But you know what? It works. We can shave it down and get it to the size we need for these bases. So what I'm doing here is just taking whichever piece I'm going to use in that base, kind of punch a hole in it to see exactly where I want it to go, and then rather than trying to like dig it out and make a big mess, I thought if I use these tweezers to carefully pluck out the foam and leave enough space that it would work perfectly. Unfortunately, I did take out a little bit too much in areas, so some of the little pieces of branch here, after I kind of pressed them in to make that hole, they were kind of falling out or leaning if the hole was too big. So you just try to rest it in the right spot so it's bouncing where you need, fill it with glue, and then leave it in a place where it's going to dry, you know, balancing right up the way you want it to be. So you guys have seen me do this in many of my videos. I just took some Mod Podge and I mixed it with a dark colored base. I ran out of black paint, which I've mentioned in a couple videos. It's been a while since I went and got some. I did also go out and buy some black and brown paints for future projects, so moving forward I'll have them. But for this, it didn't really matter all that much. I was going to cover this with so many washes and some dirt terrain and other things that I really didn't care too much what the color of this base was. I just wanted to make sure it was a dark enough color that I could make sure I was covering the pink foam and knowing that I got every piece of it kind of plastered with this mixture. So here I was just taking some little pieces of kind of stone and branch terrain that I have, and then took some sand and kind of sprinkled it generously over the pieces. I then took my white primer spray can, shook it up nice and good, and figured, you know what, if I can get most of it covered here, I mean, the washes are already going to stick really well to the Mod Podge paint mixture, but I figured this will also get a little bit on the branches and the trees, which will give it a slight lighting effect, kind of accidentally, which will work really well. So I first started out by making this, I think it's skeleton bone, which is the only lighter brown wash that I had. I ended up covering the camera with my hand doing a lot of the black wash, so you're not going to see a lot of it, so I tried to show a fair bit of what I was doing here. Basically just trying to make sure that I covered every area around the trees for sure, and that I covered the kind of dirt and stone texturing and terrain that I was placing on these bases. As you can see, this is where I stupidly am putting my hand right in front of the camera. This was my concern about doing terrain or doing miniature painting in general, as I was afraid I would have a bad angle. But basically what I was doing here, I was trying to mix the black in with the brown and covering the remainder that I didn't cover with brown with the black. The idea is just to create a dark mixture of what could be, you know, an earthy, dark terrain in like a swampy, nightmarish area. So I made sure all of the blue and all of the white was covered by either black or brown wash. And I think it looks fantastic. I was very pleased with how it came out. And here we are going to begin our painting of our miniature of our Tiefling Rogue. So what I like to do with every mini is I take the largest clothing area or the main color that the mini is going to be, and I start with that first. I try to blanket the miniature with as much pure color that's going to be in the background, and then you want to draw your colors forward. So you want to do everything that's on the like lowest layer of clothing and blanket that completely, and then add the detailed layers on top of that. And you'll see that there are times that when I'm painting the leather straps or I'm painting other clothing portions, I cover the black. But the nice thing is you can go back and then touch up those areas very finely. But you want to get good solid coverage on as much as you can of that main color in your first pass. So the second most covered area of this miniature is going to be either the main color of the secondary portion of the clothing or the skin. So right now I'm making a very simple red skin tiefling. The majority of tieflings in D&D have red skin or even the human flesh tone. I know everyone likes to go with, you know, purple tieflings, and that's totally cool. I'm a big fan of mixed races, so if people say, hey, I want to be like a yellow tiefling, how do we make that happen? Or a black skin tiefling, or whatever it is, that's awesome. Let's just come up with a cool way of why it happened. Like Jester Lavore in Critical Role. Father was a water genasi, so she was a blue tiefling. I am all for that kind of stuff. But I have never painted just a pure red skin tiefling before, so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to do so. I also think that when you're painting miniatures, it's not a bad idea to come up with like a theme of the color scheme you want to do. For me, I thought red, black, and gold. That's such a cool and classic color scheme. That's what I wanted to do here. I was in a miniature store once where one of the owners was telling someone who was new to D&D, when you're painting minis, it sometimes helps to think of a theme. Like, for example, think of your favorite superhero. If your favorite superhero is Superman, then why not make the main colors of your miniature blue, yellow, and red? Like, come up with themes like that. And if you look back in the intro to the first video, when I showed an example of a lot of different miniatures that I painted, the one red skin dragonborn that I did, I created off of the classic Thor outfit. With the silver and the black with the blue cape. And I kind of just, that's why his little tassels over the circles on the chest piece of the armor are light blue, because, you know, they glow with lightning. I basically turned Thor into a dragonborn. I think that was a great bit of advice that I heard that individual tell that person. And so for this was kind of like a, I don't know, Black Adam, Captain Marvel style look, where I wanted to have the leather be, you know, different colors of brown, but I wanted the main outfit black, and I wanted a gold accent. So what you're going to see here, and as much that I could get in front of the camera, is me painting kind of the leather straps on the back, where I actually do cover a good portion of the black pant leg, but I can always go back in later and very carefully just fill that black in between the leather straps. So I'm actually coming in here with a bronze paint that I'm using for kind of the shin guards, the greaves here. I'm going to use the same bronze paint on the sort of mantle or neck chest piece. And I do apologize for the fact that this isn't the best kind of focus and that I sometimes pull the miniature out of the camera. Like I said in the part 1 video, my hesitation of making a miniature painting video was A, that it wouldn't focus, and B, I like to hold the minis right up to my face and get real close for the small details. And the problem with doing that is it's very hard to keep it in camera view. I get so focused on what I'm doing because of my ADHD that I sometimes forget, oh yeah, I'm filming this and I have to keep it in view of the camera. So I'm very sorry for the times that it's hard to see what I'm doing. I would always remember, oh crap, I gotta put it in front of the camera and then move it back forward. Now, it's not easy to see what I'm doing here, but I basically took a crimson kind of purplish wash and I'm just putting it on some of the black areas. It's going to be very difficult to see on camera, but anyone who sees this miniature up person, they're going to see that reddish purple tone over top of the black, which just adds a little bit of depth to the miniature when you're looking at it. Again, these things are very difficult to show on camera, and they're just little features that, you know what, maybe no one's going to notice, but I'm going to notice, and they kind of make me happy. When it comes to oil painting, I learned a technique from a lot of people that I watch videos of. Never use black. You should always create a black out of a mixture of other colors. So even when I'm using black in miniature painting, as you saw with the tomb taper, I don't like just having black. I want to have a lot of colors layered underneath. I want to have dry brushing underneath. And then when you cover it with washes, maybe nobody notices. But you subconsciously, you might not realize it's there, but you do pick up on these little hints of other colors. So to me, that sort of thing is important, even if to the average person it's going to be completely unnoticeable. So here I'm just adding silver to the buckles on the straps. I'm filling in the little knives on his leg holsters, I guess you could call them. The little knife that's in his bracer, and then covering the blades as well. Just tiny little details, as fine as I can. Now this is very hard to see, but I took a lighter color of red and I'm trying to highlight little bits of the horns on the tiefling, the brow over the eyes, and then the top of the tail. And again, it's almost impossible to see this on the camera, but in person it definitely does make a difference. And then I took a brown wash and then even a darker wash and covered some of the gold with that. So I'm trying to create like a two-tone color scheme on these things, so there's a lighter color underneath or on top of a darker color, so you get a little bit of depth and realism in the miniature. I only have two pure red colors. I should have gotten maybe even mixed the other red color, so after I did this, maybe mixed it again with white to make it an even lighter color, to then do fewer highlights in specific areas. I believe that would have made the miniature pop a little bit more, but you know what, lesson learned. I know for next time. So it turns out my cat got into one of my boxes and destroyed a lot of my trees and a lot of these platforms here. So I don't have as much ready to go right now that I would like. I'm going to build more trees, possibly in a future video, to give more of a jungle look. So stay tuned to that one in the future. But I feel like this is a pretty good setup for our bay here. And to give you an idea of kind of the size differential against a regular mini, we're going to pop in our little tiefling here. It gives you a good idea. And I like having layered terrain so people can hop up and shoot from a range position, hide behind some rocks, do whatever they have to do. But yeah, that's kind of the idea we're looking at, and I'm pretty happy with that. I needed some minis to face these enemies, so here's my my amethyst, Dragonborn Bard, the 70s rocker I'm going to play sometime soon. This is my current player I'm playing in a campaign, which is a polearm sentinel barbarian fighter, and then now our rogue tiefling miniature that we just finished up. So let's face them up against our enemy here. guys, so I hope you can kind of see the idea there of how I try to build terrain or use terrain that I already have to create a battlefield when I'm buying a miniature and painting it for my campaigns. I try to think about how best my players can utilize the terrain in combat and how best I can create terrain that will best suit the creature. So you want to kind of set the scene and how best my terrain can suit that creature. So if you're going to be playing a dark and spooky, monster, then you want to set the scene of it being creepy. Shadows are moving around, and you can't tell if what you're seeing is just tricks played on you by the winds and the darkness, or if it's actually something lurking about around you. As all of your senses are heightened, and the hairs begin to stand up on the back of your neck as you hear crickets and small creatures around you. The snap of a twig makes you jerk your head. Is it fear, or just heightened senses that makes you question every sound you hear around you as you all walk through this tumultuous, dark place? And then you spring the enemy on them. So you really want to create a setting that visually, once you've described it, when you place it down in front of them, they go, oh, that's exactly what I imagined, or oh, that's creepier than what I was thinking about. And it adds to your miniature. When you're trying to plan combat, your terrain and what you're kind of surrounding your enemy with should make them even look scarier based on what you're showing. For something like the bay here, you just want more of a setting that makes sense to where the creature is going to be placed. It doesn't necessarily, that's not like a horror creature, so you don't have to make it a spooky area. In that case, you can drop that down in rocky areas, jungle areas, forested areas, anywhere where they would roam. So you don't have to go that far with it, but you should still create things that can give it a bit of an advantage. So they do have a lightning strike. Maybe you want to have them in a swamp where if anyone's standing in a pool, and literally have designated water areas so that if they get struck with a lightning beam and they're standing in a pool, I don't know, maybe it does more damage, electrocutes them, I don't know, it's your choice, right? But try to find ways where your terrain can really boost up either the feeling you want your players to get from the miniature, or something that can mechanically actually help them out. Places for them to hide, places for them to climb, things like that. So anyway, these were really simple miniatures to paint. They're not that complicated. I know there are a lot of amazing miniature painters out there that do incredible things with shading and blending, and they make glowing and light effects. I just personally find that stuff looks too cartoony, looks too anime. And for me with D&D, even though it's not realistic, I want things to look as realistic as possible. I don't want them to look too cartoony or bright and shiny if that's not realistic. So I have a style for painting. It's not going to be for everyone. Not everyone's going to like it. And I'm sure if you paint your own miniatures, you have your own distinct style that you like. I would love to get an airbrush one day so I can get a lot more advanced with my techniques and effects when I'm painting minis. And maybe one day I'll take you guys on a showcase and show you all of the different miniatures that I've painted, the different collections that I have for certain races. I don't want to do that just yet because I don't want to give too many things away to some of my players in my campaigns, but it's something to look forward to one day. Alright, well thank you guys very much. I appreciate you sitting through the two videos. I know it was a long time in between my last bit of videos and these two. Thank you for being patient with me, and I look forward to creating a lot more cool videos in the future, including a lot of projects that I'm still working on. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time on Redbeard's Workshop.